Anthony Taylor here. I'm the managing partner at SME Strategy, and today I want to talk to you about who to include in the strategic planning process. This is a question we get all of the time when people say, hey, we want to do a strategy offsite, but we're not sure who to include. We've got all of our staff, we've got our board, we've got different stakeholders. Who needs to be there, who doesn't need to be there? And today I want to answer that question for you so that as you go through the process of creating your strategic plan, whether that's in a 2 or 3 day offsite or over a period of months, that you include the right people to help you get the right results the first time. I've seen so many processes get derailed because they either forgot to include somebody or, they included somebody they shouldn't have, and then it sort of muddied the waters. So we've done different videos on stakeholder engagement, so check those if you want. But today is truly about who to include and why you want to include them in the strategic planning process. So let's go. All right. So the number one group of people that you want to think about as you're getting going on strategic planning are who are your stakeholders. Now you have probably dozens of different stakeholder groups. You might have employees, investors, community members, owners, customers, etc. Consider all of your stakeholders. For large transformational strategic plans, whether that's in healthcare, whether that's education, whether that's, businesses with subsidiaries or multiple business units, you really need to be aware of all of the different people that care about your strategic plan. If you're in like an educational context, or if you have a lot of different community groups, I highly recommend that you front load your stakeholder engagement through some stakeholder interviews or surveys so that they can contribute to the plan early. Won't get too far into it today, but just keep in mind all of your different stakeholders and make sure you at least consider them as part of your planning process. You may want to have a light touch, you may want to have a heavy touch, but at least have a plan for each of your stakeholders. Otherwise, you'll derail your plan. They will derail your plan later on. Number two most common group of people that we get asked about is board members. So ultimately, your board members set the direction of the organization. That's their role. So when we look at teams and we say, hey, who to include in the planning process, if there's a board, the strategy starts with them. If you don't start with them and you just do the leadership team and then try to go to the board, what'll happen is they might have a different vision than you. So having the board leadership team or the board CEO relationship, an effective one, is critical. So the easiest way we found is do the strategy with the board first and then cascade it down to the leadership team. Some people say, hey, our board is really busy, or you might be a volunteer board. It can take a good amount of time to do. So you want to be mindful of their time. That's why you don't want to have a rambling process or a process that doesn't get the job done in the right amount of time. But also when you're communicating it to them, say, this is a priority. We had a company that we talked to. The president, the owner of the company, really wanted to do strategic planning, but the board didn't think that it was, worth their time to do. Meanwhile, that CEO is overwhelmed. He can't get the stuff that he needs done, and it's causing a lot of frustration and stress. Because you need to get the board on board to do strategic planning because it's the most critical thing an organization can do. So consider their time, but also communicate that it's a priority for them. Second level and second group of people you want to consider as you start cascading down from your stakeholders are your senior leader and department heads. So your senior leaders are the people that you want in your planning session after your board. They're going to be the ones that are responsible for the functional areas. They're going to be the ones responsible for the strategy. You might not be able to include everybody. So you might have senior leaders, you might have department heads, you might have middle managers. Start at the top and work your way down. Be aware of who's responsible for setting strategy and get the most senior people at the table. Okay. You'll then want to cascade the plan and have your own sort of department head strategies, middle manager strategy, but all of it aligns with that higher level. So consider stakeholder groups first, get your board members there, then senior leaders, then department head. One of the other questions that we get often is, hey, should we include employees as part of our strategic planning process? So your employees need to know the strategy, but you might not necessarily want them to shape it, okay? So what we recommend is get their input before the session so that you can use it as part of the process, that they feel heard. And then you want to give them feedback after, hey, we heard your feedback. Here's our strategic planning process. What do you think? And how can you contribute to it? So get them involved in the pre-phase and the after phase when it comes to execution. But when it comes to shaping the strategy, I'd be very wary of including them. Now, the reason is that when you think of senior leaders, their job is to be strategic. Their job is to look long term. And so if you put employees in the process and they're thinking short term and your senior managers are thinking medium long term, then you're getting very, very different perspectives. You're also getting a mix of needs. Employees' needs are typically reactive. They're typically looking out for themselves, whereas senior managers have other people that they need to consider. They are going to be thinking more of the company versus their small sort of area and their own domain. Okay, so as it relates to including employees, get their input on the front end, share with them on the back end, be cautious of including them throughout the entire process. The only exception to this rule, in our opinion, is when they're a small company. If you're a team of 15 people or so, it would be kind of weird if you only include half the company in the process. So if you're around that 15-person mark, I'd say do a strategic planning session with everybody, get everybody involved because you're small enough that everybody needs to know what's happening, unless you have a management structure in place. If you're at 20 people, then you probably have 3 or 4 or 5 senior managers in place already. Start with those 3, 4, 5 people, and then cascade down to the employees from there. And then this is really at the heart of everything, is cascade the involvement. Start from the top down, and then go bottom up, okay? So you want to make sure every level of people is included within the organization. So as we mentioned, stakeholders, board, senior management, middle management, frontline employees. You want to make sure that it goes top down from strategy and then bottom up for actions. And then as it relates to communication planning, consider how everybody's going to communicate. So up, down up, and across. Okay, so make sure that there's communication channels for everyone to be successful, to be bought in. One thing I'll note is that, strategic planning itself happens over 2 or 3 days or a couple months, but then you're going to implement it over several years. So this involvement isn't just for the 2 or 3 days. You want to make sure that you have involvement throughout the implementation. That's where a lot of organizations fall short. So, in summary, strategy creation should start top down and then make its way back up in terms of feedback and action items and performance. Make sure that your stakeholders are engaged and considered throughout. And then be really cautious of mixing different perspectives, even like operations people versus like shared service people or different groups with different perspectives is going to mess up your strategy. Okay, I've done it a bunch of times, not by choice. Because we've had people in the session that shouldn't have been there or weren't prepared to be there or were just the wrong mix of people. Made it work, but it made the process a lot more bumpy. So the more clear perspective you can have on the strategy session, the easier that it's going to be, okay? So if you're looking for some help in better understanding who to include in the planning process so that it's effective, so that it's aligned, and you can get it off the ground and into the implementation phase, be sure to let us know. We can help you through the planning, creation, and implementation, either virtually or in person. So if you'd like to schedule a consultation with us, just have a conversation, say, hey, we're thinking of doing this planning session. We're thinking of including these people. What do you think? And we'll generally give you a pros, cons. There's never really one answer, but there are some that prove to be more successful than others. So click the link in the description below. You can learn more about what we do, about our process, who we'd include, and you can book a consultation today. And if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to like and subscribe. We post podcasts every couple days and give you tons of great content, not only for creating your strategy, but really getting that implementation, stakeholder engagement, and communication moving forward. So thanks so much for watching. Really appreciate it. I would love your feedback as well. And we'll see you in the next video. My name's Anthony Taylor. I'm the managing partner at SME Strategy, and I just want to thank you for watching. All right, catch you soon.